Hello, Mayank. Welcome to Zenonco.io and Love Heals Cancer. So, we are going to share your story, share your journey, so that we can inspire other caregivers and other cancer patients. So, could you please start sharing your journey with us?
Hi, Nimisha. Good afternoon. I really thank you for inviting me for this. So, should I speak for 3-4 minutes, or are you going to ask specific questions?
No, so you can start with how you came to know about the particular disease or what it was and how you got
Okay.
diagnosed and
So
the treatment.
my story is my family story is slightly old, from 25 years ago. So in June 1996, my father was diagnosed with a high-grade brain tumor. This was at AIIMS, Delhi, and it was very clear that he needed a physical removal. I mean, a surgery for a physical removal. You cannot directly, for the mass that he had, you cannot directly go to chemo or radio. So we contacted a doctor, a very senior doctor, probably India's top neurosurgeon at that point of time, who had just moved out of AIIMS. He was heading neurosurgery there and set up his own practice in Delhi itself. And the prognosis or diagnosis was so bad that he said after the surgery, he told my mom in very clear, I mean, because these doctors are very straightforward. I mean, why would they mince words? It's not as if, hello?
Yeah.
Sorry, just give me a moment. So it's not as if he's trying to take out money from us or he's money minded. He has enough. So that's why, the advantage for us was my father was a bureaucrat. So we didn't really have to worry about costs. Anything that we wanted to do, we could do it. In fact, we also had an option to go to the US, but then only one person would be sponsored by the government of India. And that would have been my mom, obviously. But although we have family in the US, it's difficult to manage. So we decided that this is 1996. Might sound like ancient times now, but not really. Most of the treatment was also already fairly standardized. So it's just, I mean, now you also have cancer oncologists doing tele surgery, like telling a not so specialist what to do next with a specific Philips machine, right? So we decided to stick to India, and I don't think we regret the decision. So going back to what the doctor said, I think his name was Dr. Banerjee, Dr. A.K. Banerjee. He was very hot-headed. That's why he had left AIIMS, because AIIMS is a government organization, and he was curt to the point. He observed niceties, but he also knew there's no point in misguiding the family. So he told my mom, look, Mrs. Kumar, at the best case, not even worst case, best case, I give your husband not more than 1.5 years. And if I'm talking in June end 1996, this would have meant that my father, even going exceeding Dr. Banerjee's best case scenario, he would have been with us only till some point in 1998, a couple of years later. But by his own sheer will to fight, I mean, the story didn't end well because we eventually lost him. But by his own sheer will to fight, he was a very gutsy person. From an exercise point of view, he was the kind of guy, if he has to catch he used to go out for jog and whatever at 6 a.m. But if he had a 6:30 a.m. to fly from Lucknow to Delhi or vice versa, he would get up at 3 a.m. and do that exercise, right? And again, I'm talking the pre-smartwatch era, no 10K steps, nothing. So he had a will to fight. We were with him. One good part about us was, such a terminal disease or illness can be very hard on the pocket of the family. So it wasn't for us. Like I said, he was a senior bureaucrat. So thankfully, the government of India was taking care. That is one perk. The salary of a government official is not high, but perks like these are intangibles. You don't really think about. But I do now, because my family went through it. So financially, then you're emotionally drained. And I mean, if my brother, who's 3 years older, I mean, when this started happening, I was almost 18, and I was in first year in IIT Kanpur. My brother was an IIT Delhi graduate and heading to an IIM. So we were both settled career-wise. Money, not so great, but not bad. I mean, not so great because, I mean, we didn't have too many savings, because my father was a very upright, whatever officer. So unlike popular perception, not uh, not just on a lighter note, not every bureaucrat has a Swiss bank account, right? So
Right.
that helped us, and we knew, I mean, bad times lay ahead, but it was up to us to, with sheer willpower and giving him moral support, taking care of each other. When I say that, my mom and the two sons, the two of us, that we extend his quality, I mean, his life, stay on earth with good quality of life. And that's very, very important. I remember I'd gone to some kind of satsang. I'm based at Pune, so at another volunteers Love Heals Cancer, like the parent group of Zen Onco is LHC, right? So
Yes,
one such
yes.
satsang couple of years ago, April 2019, and that was the first time I was speaking to fellow volunteers of LHC. And I said that quality of life is very important, because if my father is bedridden and almost comatose, in a coma for 2 years, do I want that? I mean, forget financially, maybe for 15 years I can support him on ventilator, right? But is there a point? I mean, if I love him, it would pain me to see him in such a vegetative state, when I'm saying that he was a kind of guy who would wake up at 3 to exercise. A very self-made man. I mean, my father was the youngest of uh, uh, seven or eight siblings. His mom passed away when he was 4, and his eldest sister. He had a eldest brother. Then the first of the remaining sister, she literally, she was like mom to him. And I mean, he studied very hard. He went to Allahabad University. He cracked, like it said, he cracked UPSC, and he was a very, I mean, well-respected bureaucrat. Worked very hard. So one thing that always pinches me is that, sorry if I sound like choking a bit, because I am, because I thought he had a hard childhood, and now is the time when he had invested so much in his children's education to start reaping the benefits, and he would have retired some years later. If I mean, he was 1947 born, so in 2007 he would have retired from the service, from a much senior position, and doing more good work that he already had. And both the sons would have been married. He would have then, so that element, very big element, is missing from my life. So the point is, his quality of life, he eventually passed away in Jan 2002, was quite good. I mean, not like I'm saying that somebody's comatose and vegetative. I know people who have parents who have been vegetative for 30 months. They have bed sores, and the parent says, "Bhagwan mujhe utha lo," because this is worse than living. This kind of state. And many of these parents are people who have already lost their spouse. So the surviving parent, and that's why my friends are more anxious that she or he is my only surviving parent. I have to make sure that she lives on or he lives on. But also, I mean, it's happened my father passed away way too young. I mean, 54 is no age to go, right? Untimely. Uh, his siblings who are now 80s are now, like, some of them have expired. And my first reaction is always good for them. I mean, yes, there's a short-term pain for my cousins, the children, but the state they have been, if they haven't been keeping good health, makes no point. I mean, that kind of life makes no point. I mean, I'm not saying again that their children have to worry about them and then they can stop worrying, but it's just that if I love that person, it pains me to see that person in that state. So in the last 6 months of my father's life on earth, uh, what happened was we went for a very aggressive chemotherapy because we knew he's sinking. So we have to save him. So it's Arya Par. Either that chemo will do something good, or worst case, when I say aggressive, it could also have adverse effect. But there's no major downside, because anyway, we all knew, the doctors knew, we knew he's sinking, right? So it's not as if some adverse thing happens and he goes exponentially down. So what happened in that chemotherapy was around, it went on for a couple of cycles. And then in September 2001, there was a very strong reaction in one of the cycles. And I think whatever rays or whatever you call it, chemical that's induced into the affected area, in this case his brain, hit some optical nerves, and he lost his eyesight. So that was a very, very dark period in my life. I still think about that all the time, because when we got him back, initially we didn't realize he's lost 100% eyesight, or maybe for 2-3 days it was partial. And then one day he was sitting in his room and I'd never seen him get annoyed at anything or anyone. So he says, why don't you pull the curtain or at least switch on the light? And it was 11 a.m. The curtains were pulled apart. He was sitting in his room, in his chair, not lying down. And I or somebody said, but it's 11 a.m. and the lights are on. I mean, there's so much of sunlight seeping in. And he said, in Hindi, what I'm saying in English, why are you joking? Please switch on the light. And then we realized what is going on. And within a few minutes, he stopped talking. I mean, for the last 2.5-3 months of his existence, he spoke very little because he went into shock. And like I'm saying, if you love somebody a lot, so I mean, imagine, and this was irreversible. I mean, there was not so much of internet penetration then. I still read about it, but that kind of condition was irreversible. It's not like cornea that you transplant a cornea or retina detachment, you fix that. It was something far more grave in the optic nerves and the brain. So that could not be mended then or even now. So, I mean, now it's been 19 years and I try to keep helping, at an individual basis, cancer patients if I can. Whenever, if you look at Keto, for example, keto.org or whatever it's called, there's so many campaigns, but I also have my own constraints, right? I cannot keep putting money, but in many I have. In fact, I then become a advocate for that family, and I also try to rope in friends who can pay. In fact, I'm not very sure. I was saying once to Dimple that Dimple's ex-husband Nitesh, with whom she started Love Heals Cancer, is a IIT Kanpur graduate, and so am I. So I remember that at some point of time for his treatment, there was a campaign from within the IITK alumni, and I contributed to that as well. And they say it's a small world, and somehow later through IMC Connect or through a social media post, I started speaking to Dimple. So I realized, oh, she's Nitesh's wife/friend. So that's how I somehow I'm sorry. I was very keen to get involved. March, April 2019 onwards. I also did some fundraising of some amount, 50K to 1L for LHC in that year. But then I switched jobs and moved to Delhi. And then this was the end of 2019, and this happened then. Corona, we all know.
Right.
So the focus has been very, very different. I have been volunteering. Yes, right now I'm helping friends raise funds for the districts for fighting Corona, but not really been able to come back to Zenonco. But yeah, maybe with this interview, I can probably be involved again. Yeah. So that is all I want to say. But if you have any questions, sorry, just before you start, I think the idea of this interview or recording is that we offer hope to patients, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So,
yes.
I'm saying, yes, I said it had a sad ending, an inevitable ending there, but the fact that India's top neurosurgeon thought, and you cannot challenge his experience, whatever 30-40 years of experience he had with tumors, cancer, neurosurgery, he's telling you upfront that best case is 18 months. And then, I don't want to overplay my own role. It's my mom's Lagan. And because we had a good network of fellow government officers, like somebody said, Ahmedabad mein wahan par ye jadi booty milti hai. So see, jadi booty, I think conventional allopathic doctor or this cancer surgeon will laugh. Wo hai, illiterate hai, are you crazy? So, and this will have no effect. So no effect, like I'm saying, for the chemotherapy, either it would have had a good effect and swing tha, or it could even go bad. In our case, there was no go bad. It was already pretty bad, right? But with homeopathy, and a lot of these people will also laugh at homeopathy, that homeopathy is just placebo or it's just sugar and water. Like a lot of doctors in the UK, I think, believe that homeopathy is total farce. It's just sugar plus water. Whatever, I like the taste of homeopathy and it works for me. So my story still offers hope in the sense that India's top neurosurgeon tells the primary caregiver of the patient that he won't go on for more than 18 months, good or bad quality of life. But even if I exclude the last 6 months of his life, which were indeed bad, so he did survive from June 2000, June 96 to June 2001. Pretty good. I mean, if you had said, barring those last 6 months, would you have preferred that his life was shorter because he was in his own world, or he could not connect with you? And no way. I mean, those 5 years were still very good. So that, I mean, so just think 1.5 years predicted by India's top neurosurgeon versus 5 years. So like 3x or 3.33x. So I've seen miracles happen. I have a friend, obviously, I won't name her. She's battling breast cancer right now. She's roughly 40, and her first, I mean, actually, her husband is more of a friend of mine. She's a friend by induction because she's my friend's wife. And one of the first thing I said to the friend, he lives elsewhere, not in India, that please do not let thoughts like this creep in. Why us? Why me? Why my family? Because that will not help you start the battle. It will put you in a state of constant negativity. And he said, wow, that you mentioned that is exactly what she has been saying, that we have a young daughter, at least uska college pura ho jata. What's the point? What if? Ideal case mein to kisi ko bhi nahi hona chahiye. I mean, everybody should die in late 70s or 80s, and the whole family, at least the people who matter, the sons, daughters, jija, nand, whoever, they all know that this guy is going to expire 10 din baad. So like a celebration of that person's life, Dadi ji or Dadaji, everybody gathers. I mean, at least in the north, in old times, the ancestral homes were big, right? So even if 10 people land in, so they can all accommodate. So something like that. And I think the most graceful death is when everybody knows, everybody has said the last byes, and you peacefully pass away in sleep. In fact, बहुत सुनने में आता है. Sorry, I'm using Hindi also. I hope that's okay.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, so ये बहुत सुनने में आता है कि मेरे दादाजी तो नींद में ही गुजर गए. I think for the person who passed away, that is the best. I even have cases in the family where a person had a very, very, very ill in the last few days. Doctor ने हाथ खड़े कर दिए. He said, आप क्या चाहते हैं कि हम उनको IV दें, लास्ट दिन तक 10 ट्यूब लगे रहें, या let his last 10 days be joyous, relieve him from the hospital? And both the parties agreed. So it was not like the doctor was going against some ethos of doctors or medical practice. It was just a joint decision, right? I mean, in our case, when we went for this chemotherapy, in fact, I remember the name, PCV, and we were so desperate to get it done कि कोई चमत्कार हो जाए. So PCV were 3 different chemicals. I think 1 or 2 of those chemicals, C and V, were not available in India. So we got a subscription written by a friend in Dallas. She was an Indian friend who had moved from India. We got a prescription written, and then she gave it to somebody in Air India. He flew it to Delhi, where we were. मतलब उतना हमने fight मारा. करेंगे our own dad, forget immediate family, our own dad, right? So, I mean, this kind of networking my mom could not have done. We 2 brothers did, like finding out kahan hai. But it came to naught. But for us, हमें इस बात का वो है, तसल्ली है कि we didn't leave any stone unturned. I even did something like one of my father's very close friends. He said, again, I mean, this is open to interpretation. He said, कि गायत्री मंत्र 108 बार हर सुबह पढ़ो, one of you. So between me, so for my mom it was not possible. She's diabetic, so if she stays hungry longer, she was diabetic, she still is. In fact, she also developed hypertension during my father's illness, right? So it's a deadly combination, but she's taking a lot of care of herself now, which is good. So it was decided that not because I was the younger son, but I volunteered to do that. So कभी-कभी ऐसा भी होता था कि सुबह उठे, because it's been a bad night for whatever reason, because he was not well and we were waking. So I made it a point, because this family friend who's and in fact, who was I telling this today? I forget, but I was telling somebody, I was telling another friend today, he's my father's closest friend. They went to college together at Allahabad University. They joined the civil services together, same batch, 1972. So when my father lost his eyesight, he was the guy जो office skip करके, obviously if you're a senior guy you can manage those things. 5 घंटे he would come and hold my father's hand. He bus, I'm with you. So
that gives peace.
Sorry?
That gives peace.
Yes. So that's it. Even if I left something incomplete, nothing more from. Unless you have any specific question, I'm pretty much done.
So actually, I wanted to know, like, what were the early signs? Like, you went to the doctor. Why exactly you went to the doctor? What happened?
Okay, so that's quite a story. Like I said, I was in my first year of IIT. So I was at IIT Kanpur, and my father and mom obviously were in Delhi, and so was my elder brother because he was completing his last year of IIT Delhi. So I first observed. I mean, it might have been going on for longer in my break. Like IITs have a semester system, so I finished my first semester in December '95, and I don't know why my brother didn't go. Maybe had some stuff around. He was in final year and job search and all. So my mother, my father, and I went to Panchgani, not Panchmadi, which is a hill station in Madhya Pradesh near Indore and Bhopal. Okay. And I observed, and obviously, if there's small things happening, they're not going to update me on everything on phone while I was at first semester in Kanpur, right? And तब तो WhatsApp भी नहीं होता था कि हर 2 मिनट में मैसेज पापा की तबीयत ठीक, this and that. So I observed that, and if you Google for Panchmani, they have lots of temples, very classic temples. Like there's one right below a rock, huge boulder. So in fact, it's scary. I thought कि अगर इसके अंदर गए नीचे और फिर ये बंद हो गया, like बंद हो जाए system, what will happen? So my father, who's very, very active, very, very not athletic, I'll say, but very, very active, good stamina. After every 5 minutes, he was sitting down, and because जैसे बोलते हैं ना कि उसने किसी बीमारी ने शरीर में घर कर लिया था, so we didn't know. And I was surprised. I asked my mom, what's going on? So she also said, I'm not sure, but in the last, and I'm talking about mid-December, and last 2-3 weeks, he's been a bit also skipping his exercise, right? So I said, maybe, I mean, yes, everybody has a low in life. A fair, in the following month, I went back to Kanpur for my second semester. Things kept happening. So my mother and brother updated me on some of them. See, I didn't even have a mobile. So it would be like in the hostel, like anybody who's from my generation would know that your mom or somebody will, either you go to a STD booth, which is very like full after 9 p.m. because STD rates would be 1/2, 1/3, or there's a single phone in hostel. So your mom will call in off-peak hours and say to the attendant that please call Mayank from room so and so. I'll call again in 5 minutes. और पता चलेगा उतनी देर में किसी और का phone आ गया, and you are pleading it's an important call, but he would say so is my call important, right? And you're left hanging. So the updates weren't so frequent. Then Jan and of Feb, he came to Kanpur for a wedding of a family friend's daughter rather, and he came to my campus to pick me, and I was in between exams, and I said, is it really important for me? Haan, chalo. And he was the kind of guy who would prioritize career and academics over anything, and I was very surprised. And I saw some signs again which were not typical of him. And then in the next 2-3 months before my semester ended, like one doctor said he's probably undergoing clinical depression. You should meet a psychologist. And my mother said, what bullshit. I mean, he has everything going from him, a good career, and I mean, we have no financial troubles and 2 sons doing very well in life. What made you think that? So anyway, and we didn't go. And then we went to a family doctor who was a cardiologist. उन्होंने कुछ ECG निकाला कि इनको तो 2-3 silent heart attacks हो चुके, which probably also turned out to be bullshit. So we weren't sure what to do. I mean, again, अगर by the time he passed away, net was still there in India. We didn't know कि किससे पूछें, right? And you can't, you have again, you are yourself a young Nimisha, so it's hard for you to imagine a world without Quora.com and Google.com. So we kept hurtling, rather not we, my mother and brother kept hurtling from one specialist to the other. And finally क्या हुआ, जब ये निकला है, मतलब डायग्नोज हुआ है एम्स में, उससे 3-4 दिन पहले से my father couldn't even stand, मतलब उनके पैर लड़खड़ते, not all the time, but जैसे होता है कि feet have given away, तो मतलब his feet would started, and luckily each time luckily he didn't fall in the bathroom. We were careful because if you know, with older people a lot of deaths happen eventually because somebody slipped in the bathroom or hit his head on the basin or water closet. And जो water closet or basin में cement के होते हैं, these are very very hard. I mean it can like crack your skull. So फिर 3-4 दिन घर पर रखा, फिर वो कार्डियोलॉजिस्ट ने बोला it's heart related, हमने कहा माफ कर दो, don't bullshit. And then 3rd or 4th day we decided कि अब it's time कि AIIMS Delhi, it's important to say AIIMS because AIIMS now, like IITs and IIMs, a lot of other places, there are AIIMS, but the AIIMS Delhi. Let's take him to what do you say, जो emergency OPD होता है, तो वहाँ even before his OPD was done, junior doctor था, and that's a tribute to AIIMS, how good the doctors are. उसने मेरे father की आंखों का grey color देख के, I mean, I think otherwise my father's eyes were brown. The expression on it, and he said, "Sir, मतलब जो भी हमारे साथ senior person गए थे, sir, I think he might have a, because obviously while filling a form and waiting for a turn on the CT scan machine or MRI machine, sir, I might be wrong, but this looks like to be a case." In fact, a doctor went with us who was not a cancer specialist, but he was accompanying us to Houston. I mean, वो शायद हो सकता है government की तरफ से गया. I don't remember that much, of course. So he said this could be a case of brain tumor. I remember I was standing right there. So and I think my mother also was. वो तो सुन के obviously she started crying, and वो result जितनी देर में भी I turned out that it was a very big chunk on, and of course I remember the name, anaplastic oligodendroglioma. So there are many kinds of brain tumors. So this was, and it was grade 3. Grade 4 is the highest for somebody who doesn't know. So grade 4, so grade 3 is close to very high grade malignancy. High grade malignancy means that even if you take it out, it will come back at least in the same part of the body very quick. And when the actual surgery happened by Dr. Banerjee, we thought he had said it will take 2-3 hours. It took 7-8 hours, and we got very anxious, very scared. And then eventually he told us that as a matter of procedure, he had to tear down because I think a part of the brain, the tumor was also touching the spine, right? So his fear was, Dr. Banerjee's, that it could have also traveled down the spine, which would have been very. So he said he had literally tore down the entire back looking for traces. So I cannot comment on how much technology existed 25 years ago, whether it could have been done without act, but it must have been, obviously, like I'm saying, he was the very best available in India. So yeah, so that happened. So like that's my answer to your question, why we took him and what was his condition around that time. And then 1 month later, we took him to a very close family friend, and she's in fact a Maxis. She passed away a year or 2. In fact, maybe this year only. Dr. V. Shanta. She's one of India's most recognized radio-oncologists for cancer patients, and she has her institute right next to IIT Madras campus in Chennai. She's a Magsaysay Award winner and blah blah blah. So she died at 93, and obviously at 93 she might not be doing active research, but she had done cancer research for 50-60 years. So they took very good care of my dad, chemotherapy, radiotherapy. Then some portion of the tumor came back. Like I said, it's high grade. By the time it came back 2-3 years later in 99, there was something called gamma knifing. So what gamma knifing, I haven't heard the term for a long time now. Maybe that's out of vogue or it has a different name. So it like pinpoints at the very exact location of the tumor can be brain tumor, any tumor, not blood cancer, of course, because you cannot burn blood, right? So I think at least twice that gamma knifing was done, because opening up it's no joke to open up the brain, right? Open up the skull. So this was a much, doing a not cost benefit, SWOT analysis. Gamma knifing was considered to be a far more safe option. So that was done. So like I said, if I put together all the hospitalizations, like once platelet, like it doesn't dengue, but it wasn't dengue, it felt alarmingly low. In fact, that's the only time I have traveled in a general bogie in an Indian Railways train. Not a great experience, because my semester was ending and I was to travel, like if today is the 13th of May, I was due to travel by train from Kanpur back to Delhi for the holidays on 14th night. But he fell so seriously ill, and I think my brother was in Calcutta by then. So, doing his MBA. So it was not possible for him to come so quickly. So my mother literally ordered that abhi aa jao. Agar possible hota, I would have even taken a road cab, but again, no Uber, no Ola in those times, and very poor connectivity and not so safe taxi. So that's the only time in my life I told my roommate, I have enough clothes back home in Delhi. I do not have, because when the year ends, you have to lock your stuff and leave the rooms empty, because people from other institutes come over for summer trainings or sports events at your institute. So I told my roommate, please take care of this. Just make sure nothing is lost. Just pack it with yours, and I travel with that. So this is very, the name is material, but a very expensive hospital in Delhi, very high, well, general bogie, which was like a very bad experience traveling. I went straight to that hospital. My mama's car was there to pick me. I must have taken a bath there, and I didn't come out of that hospital for 10 days. I was there. Because my mom had to go home, prepare food for herself, for me, for my father. That much was allowed, because it was not a serious infection like you isolate into an ICU, right? That the patient is sensitive to any infection, so not even a family member can meet. So she was going back and forth. So again, I'm not taking pride in the fact I was there for 10 days, but I'm just saying we have no regrets. We tried everything we could, and like I said before, because of the Sarkari angle, because he was a senior IAS officer, we got. I'm not saying we didn't care, but we were. मतलब उस साइड से तसल्ली थी कि we don't have to worry where the bill payment is coming from, because his secretary, yeah.
So how did you actually manage your student life? Like, you were taking care of your father also, and you had to continue your college.
So student life, as in 96 to 99, I was still, because it was a 4-year program from 95 to 99. Except summer holidays and winter holidays, my friend made plans to go somewhere, to go to Khajuraho, to go here, to go there. During summer, I didn't. I missed out on that part, because I was always in a hurry to get back to Delhi, right? And in fact, not Delhi. In 97 or 98, my father, he was a UP cadre officer. They moved back to Lucknow, because most of the important treatment was done. See, in India then, and perhaps even now, treatment wise, hospital quality wise, there's no matching Delhi. And so we chose to be in Delhi, extend my father's whatever posting there by year. Because of that, eventually came to Lucknow. So I was always in a hurry. So somebody's making plan. I remember one time from Allahabad, there was to be a once in a century viewing of a lunar eclipse or solar eclipse or something. So friends were making plans and telescope leke jayenge. So I wasn't part of many of those things. And then between 99 and 2002, I was working in Bangalore, my job, and I was in the US for some time. So again, own father, so you can never forget what's happening back home, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. And in fact, I started my MBA, which is my connect with Dimple. I'm Calcutta, a little after he passed away. So uh, in the first semester, I even I was 24 and a half by then, but I cried myself to sleep many nights because I quit my job in Bangalore, and before heading to Calcutta, I was with my mom for 2 months. So I could sense her loneliness. I mean, she had done so much in 5.5, 6 years, and kind of, her only reward could have been that he continued living. So, she was totally broken. Yes, Nimisha, anything else?
I thought my
Nimisha, I think
internet
your
got
screen is
internet.
frozen. I don't know.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah. So, what would be the last parting message you would like to give to other cancer caregivers or cancer experienced patients?
So my only answer to that is that however bad the news you get, there's hope. For me at least, cancer stopped being a bad word that happens only to others or in stupid Hindi movies to others. It's so insensitive that in Hindi movies they show that to gain somebody's false sympathy, you say "mujhe to cancer," and then it turns out. So now as a person, as a son of somebody lost to cancer, I find anyway most of the humor in our movies is insensitive, but the serious point I'm making is as it sounds in the first quote, and think just that through sheer will to live, and if you obviously you will, if you support the cancer patient very with sensitively, like otherwise it could be that the cancer patient thinks that ये लोग तो मुझ पे एहसान कर रहे हैं, मुझे support, forget even if it's your own spouse or children, ये लोग तो मुझ पे एहसान कर रहे हैं. So that should never come कि we are doing you a favor and all that, and will to live and explore all possible lines of treatment. Read the internet a lot. I remember when again in 2001, shortly before his death, we read about iodine implant in the US, and it was still in trial phase. And in the US, FDA is far more rigorous, right? Like right now in India, Pfizer is telling the Indian government that please bypass any legal actions against us if there are any reactions to Pfizer. And Indian government obviously won't agree, not in today's date and time, right? If it was 1960, ki chupke chupke se kuch kar lo. So even in the US, it was not legally approved by FDA. Rigorous trials. So we did read, my brother and I did read the internet a lot. That is there something we can consider for our dad? So in fact, even now I keep bookmarking any article that I get to read but hopefully to any cancer patient again in my life, and I'll only attend to somebody very close, and I hope that is never the case for the rest. I've had my share of bad luck and tragedies, and I'm done for this lifetime. But I'm saying reading a lot. There should be somebody in your family who's internet savvy, and I don't know, Nimisha, as you individually have heard or not, like I'm saying, Dimple is my IMC junior. I have IIT Kanpur junior, Rashi Jain. So she's started her venture after doing Wharton, onco.com. So they're offering telemedicine solution. Have you heard of it by any chance?
Yes.
Okay. So Rashi Jain is a few years, I didn't know her on campus because she's like 5-10 years junior to me from campus. So there are many options out there. Just somebody has to have the will and the time, and it's also very important to sort out finances, because such a 3-year battle with cancer can really exhaust all your finances. Like even in the case of COVID, I have a neighbor, his mom fell seriously ill, and the bad part about corporate mediclaims is that they don't cover your parents. They are not considered part of the family, which is weird. My current company, my mother's by default, just like my son and my wife, on my within quotes family. So she's part of the 5 or 10 lakh cover, which is very, very good. In fact, I told a lot of friends and they said, wow, this is a very good HR practice in your company, right? So it's very important to sort out finances. I mean, they will not sort themselves out. It's not like suddenly you'll get a cash award from somewhere for doing something and you'll get 30 lakhs in your kitty. No, you have to what happens to the patient, but also what happens to the family during the patient's illness, and khuda na kare after the patient passes away. Forget the emotional baggage you carry for the rest of your life. Especially, I mean, the worst affected, like in case of a married person, is the spouse, like my mother was and is, right? But whatever tragedy there is, if it causes you a financial crunch or financial misery, it's like amplified 10x or 100x. So it's very, very important. I mean, if you're taking a loan, now I know there are many options. Maybe even yesterday morning, I was crossing a franchise of Bajaj Finserv, and there were 2-3 people sitting inside. And I know Bajaj Finserv, for example, offer, and I'm not a Bajaj Finserv salesperson. I'm just taking an example. So 2-3 people were inside there at 7:30 a.m. And I was surprised. And I thought, are these employees or customers? And I mean, I'm not going to step in and ask them, but the way they were filling forms, so maybe they have a express service. Somebody wants a loan for dealing with cancer, corona treatment for family. I'm just giving an example. Yeah. So there are a lot of funds. I know one of my wife's cousins, she initiated a HDFC Cancer Care Fund. I don't remember the terms, but I've shared that with quite a few people, right? So there are very, very innovative products in the market, and one should be knowledgeable. It can't be that Mr. Sharma is visiting the family and Sharma ji ne kuch bol diya. The net is your best friend. I mean, beat any adversity, cancer or corona or anything.
So thank you so much for your time. It was great talking to you. It was really inspiring for other caregivers and cancer patients. Yeah, thank you so much.